Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Show. Domestic top flight action is on a break. The players are on their holly bags, but we are not. So coming up on today's show, Beale is back again. Gio's gone, ends Gerrard's friend. That won't stick, but anyway, Darvale and Drumchapel disrupt the cup. Yep, they've kicked the bookies square in the bollocks this week, and Porto is a no-go with Hibs as Ryan Porteous' time at Easter Road ends when the season does. Yes, I am your host, Andrew Slaven, and I'm joined today by my pundits. West Ham United producer Laura Brannan and football filmmaker and editor Findlay Marks. Hello, folks. How are you?
Hello.
Oh, my lovely pundits. It makes me think of like my lovely horse from Father Ted. But there you go, my pundits. How are you guys enjoying the World Cup?
Oh, I'm loving it. This is great fun.
I knew you'd be in there first,
so
Laura.
Good. I am just like, I'm in my happy place just now. I have 4 games a day. And my days are literally just all day football. You wake up, centred around the 10 o'clock kickoff, and then you get ready for your work, and you know, it's on in the background, and you have your lunch and it's on, and it's just like, it's a great distraction from work right now. And then when I come home, there's more on at night. And I'm actually quite disappointed that now we're going into the final group stages and it's going to be 2 on at a time, because it kind of makes me sad. You're kind of going from the big party of 4 a day to, and I need to multitask and watch 2 at a time.
Finn, what's it like in Australia by the times difference?
I was actually speaking to a friend about this recently, a friend who's English, who's lived here for, I think, over the course of 3 World Cups now, and he says by far this is the best one in terms of times for kickoffs, because usually it's all just the middle of the night. But it's been good. I mean, so the 10 a.m. game in the UK would be 9 p.m. here. So the games run 9 p.m, midnight, 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And having a 1-year-old, as I do, generally up at 6 anyway. So the 2 a.m. ones are the trickiest ones. I don't think I've seen many of them at all so far. But I think in terms of a footballing spectacle, I think what is happening is what we'd hope would happen, which is the football kind of drowns out a bit more of the circus that's going on round about it. I think it's important that the conversations don't go away. But in terms of the football itself, even just overnight for me, you know, there were some cracking games. It was like 11 goals in 2 matches. From the kind of games that you probably wouldn't have thought were going to be that enjoyable. Serbia versus Cameroon, I'm sure, wasn't one of the ones that people were circling on their wall chart. But this is the joy of the World Cup. Like, you get these different countries coming together from different associations, different places around the world, different ways of playing. And I enjoy the chaotic element of international football, and I think the World Cup is better at it than the Euros, for example, because, you know, when you have the Inter-Confederation trophy like the World Cup, you've got much more disparity between playing styles, and people don't know the full squad or the way that a team sets up. Whereas, for example, the Euros, most teams will know most of the teams, if that makes sense. They'll know roughly who the starting 11 is. They'll know roughly the style of play and who to be wary of. But if you're playing, for example, Argentina find out to their detriment, if you're playing somebody like Saudi Arabia, you're like, I'm not entirely sure what we're going to face here. And, you know, you get these brilliant upsets, and that's the joy of the World Cup.
I completely agree. That I've always found that with the Euros, there's almost a kind of staleness, because you kind of know what you're getting with it. Especially when you get like Scandinavian teams playing Scandinavian teams and vice versa, like Eastern European teams against Eastern European. But with the World Cup, you don't know what you're getting. It's a complete mix. And I think this one's especially has been a really nice mix of, yes, there's been low scoring games, but they've been entertaining low scoring games and they've not been boring. Or you get the high scoring games, which is just like teams like Spain running wild against Costa Rica, or you get the actual dramatic 3-each games or 3-2 or whatever, like the comebacks. You've had such a nice blend of everything so far. I mean, you go into the final group stages, the final round of the group stages this week, you find the majority of the groups are so tight. There's a real excitement coming out of this.
Well, I, for one, am looking forward to telling people that I've lived in London for 3 World Cups. So that person you spoke to, Finn, who describes his time in Australia and World Cups is fantastic. I like that, rather than being in years. Bringing it back to Scotland, Brecon City are certainly enjoying the World Cup, Laura.
Who'd have thought, eh? So this was the Australia camp. This was at their actual hotel. They had up on their hotel rooms, they had plaques on the door that said each player's name and the first club they ever played for. So on the door, when Harry Souttar walks in and he closes his hotel room door, you see it's got Brecon City written on his plaque. I thought it was quite a nice wee touch. And of course, Brecon are enjoying it. I don't know if you guys saw, they dug out this old photo. It was from this 2004-05 season. So it's celebrating, obviously, Harry Souttar's journey from being at the club as a tiny little boy.
Yeah.
It's also got John Souttar as a tiny little boy. But also in the front row, you've got Ryan Gauld as an even little tiny little boy. He is a baby in the front row. And honestly, it's the cutest little thing. They all look, in their own way, they all look exactly the same. They've just shrunk. It's like that Snapchat filter, like the baby face filter. It's nice. It's nice to see like clubs digging out their history like that and still having a relevance in something so big like the World Cup. And fair play to Brecon.
Well, speaking of holding on to your history, have you not seen Cédric Kipré, the former Motherwell player, becoming a full-time rapper? Laura, you must remember this guy. He's come out with this video, this music video, and he's wearing his 2017 League Cup final top from Motherwell.
This was very random.
Bizarre, but really good production value.
Et quand ça chauffe, y'en a qui sauvent, c'était pour le plaisir à la base. Et plus je monte, les sommes aussi, je veux plus que les darons travaillent. Ils pensent tous que footballeur est égal riche. Premier contrat en Angleterre, je touche beaucoup moins que le SMIC.
Yeah, I was quite impressed by it because I thought at first, is he doing this? Is he supporting somebody? Does he have like some famous friend or something and he's just sort of chipping in? But it's just him in this really quite impressive music video.
Is the music not impressive, Laura?
Well, I'm not your biggest rap fan, but what is the weirdest thing is he's wearing his Motherwell top from like 5 seasons ago.
I love that.
It's very niche.
Was there any inkling that this could be a future career path for him when he was at Motherwell? Did he come into the dressing room spitting bars, freestyling or doing anything like that when you were there, Laura?
I actually didn't work with him. Our paths never crossed, but there is a very good video of him really appreciating a loaf of bread. He was a big fan of bread.
Aren't we all?
There's literally, he's like patting a Hovis loaf like it's a dog. I wasn't there at the time. I'm going to just blame it on other people.
One thing I do miss about being in Scotland, I have to admit, to carry on the bread theme, is I miss like Scottish morning rolls. Like they just don't do rolls in London.
Yes.
A well-fired morning roll.
Well, do you know what? It's not even just a well-fired roll. I love a well-fired roll, but just a normal white roll, not a bap that they give you down here.
Absolutely.
Absolute nonsense. Just dough on dough on dough, and you like see when you squeeze a roll in Scotland, it immediately springs back, and you can chew it, you can tear it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just glorious.
Since moving here, I've had to have bacon rolls in the form of toast. It's just not the same.
It's not right, is it?
It's just not right. I cannot wait to go home for Christmas.
Well, hopefully Cédric Kipré brings out a rap about bread and I'll buy that album or that single. Wow, I feel really old now. But let's bring it back to some more serious stuff as well, because I don't know about Hibs fans, what they might feel about this, but it's going to be a big loss when Ryan Porteous isn't around next season. Obviously, they're going to have him until the end of this campaign. But he has refused a contract extension at Easter Road. And look, I think one thing's for sure, as much as he divides a lot of people in the SPFL, he's certainly a quality centre-half who did the business for Scotland when he was called into action at short notice. And a lot of people threw a lot of, uncertainties around him, but he was excellent for Scotland. And I have no doubt there'll not be a shortage of suitors, guys.
I think it's exactly the right time for Ryan Porteous to move on to the next level of his career. I think there's absolutely no doubt in his abilities as a central defender. I think it's a double-edged sword, because it's a shame for Hibs to lose not just a talented player, but to not get any money in for him, because I think he could have commanded quite a significant fee if he had signed a new deal. But at the same time, I'm always really excited at the possibility of good Scottish talent pushing itself to the highest possible level. And I feel like Ryan Porteous is maybe in a place where Scott McKenna was at Aberdeen a few seasons ago, where you felt like Scott McKenna needed a change of scenery and a change of level in order to progress, because I think he'd stagnated for quite a while at Aberdeen, just because, you know, you're playing the same team like 5-6 times every season. I just don't know how you develop that much more quickly at that level. He's gone down, proved himself in the Championship with Nottingham Forest, and now he's, you know, holding his own in the Premier League, and I think should be much more of the conversation for a starting place in the Scotland national team. But I think Ryan Porteous could be the same. I could see him absolutely playing at, if not an English Championship level, at an English Premier League level, or even potentially going abroad, you know, to maybe like one of his former teammates to Serie A.
I do remember us having loads of these conversations, Finn, especially around, it was like Kieran Tierney. It's the whole debate of he could have played his entire career at Celtic and probably been quite happy, but it's that ambition to get out and really push himself on. And okay, Scott McKenna, I can see your point. I think that's maybe a wee bit doing Porteous a disservice in a way, because it's almost saying, well, he's not that good, but he could go on, improve himself in a different league and push on up, like Scott McKenna's done. He's not the greatest player, come on, let's face it, but someone like Kieran Tierney, I think, has really pushed on to a whole new level for both himself domestically and internationally. And that's someone I think he should be looking at, because the thing is, you can look at the flip side of that. Look at someone like James Forrest, who has been the one club man of Scottish football over the last decade, and he's not really pushed himself on. He's kind of stagnated, and his international career's stumbled around a bit. And you don't, if you're going to look at different players, you want to be a Tierney, you don't want to be a Forrest.
I don't think you could say he's stagnated. I think that's a bit unfair on James Forrest.
I feel like
that's natural. But that's natural because he's just older. He's had his golden period. No, I know he's not old. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's unfair to say that he should have moved on. He's ended up winning. He's won countless amounts of medals, honours, accolades. Been player of the season. He's had a fantastic career. Just because he hasn't left Celtic doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that he stayed at Celtic.
No, I get that, and that is where the argument comes down to: is it really pushing yourself on if you leave the club? And that's kind of what the Kieran Tierney debate was at the time when he wanted to leave and push on at that age. Look, James Forrest had an absolutely glistening career. He's done fantastic, but I don't think he's pushed himself onto a limit and a level that he could have reached. I feel like at 31 he should be even better than he is right now, and he's kind of dropped down in recent years instead of going up.
I don't know. I think being a player to stay at one of the top two teams in Scotland isn't really a negative, to be fair. I mean, Scott Brown did that for Celtic for over 10, 11 years and had no interest in moving down south. And his reasoning was because he's at the Scottish champions. Why would he move down south? It's some people will look at it differently. I know what you're saying, but I think James Forrest made his decision, and injuries probably could have played a hand in that as well.
And Stevie May! Bedlam! Chaos! Euphoria in the away stand! Blue limbs everywhere!
The magic of the cup has well and truly sparked the imagination for some already, and all awaited the draw for the fourth round of the cup, especially because that's when the big guns of Scottish football come into play. It certainly whet the appetite of many sides lower down the leagues, and to help us dissect and review the cup so far, we have journalist from Football Scotland, Euan Booth Robertson. How you doing, pal? You okay?
I'm good, and I know where I'd rather be, approaching midnight on a Monday night.
That's it, mate. That's it. We pull the big guns out.
That's the magic of the cup.
Exactly. You must be pretty knackered after the draw.
Yeah, it's been a busy day, but I mean, I think it was a fantastic draw. I don't know what you guys make of it, but I thought there was some really good ties.
Yeah, really interesting, man. But all I really, really am interested in talking about from Chapel United, mate. I just think this story is phenomenal.
I mean, it's a remarkable story. I felt a little bit sorry for them with the draw, to be honest. I mean, a trip to Elgin's not the most glamorous of it. It's also a really long trip as well. So you'd want other fans to kind of get behind them and be able to go to it. But I mean, they can, of course, but you imagine they got Rangers or Celtic or Hearts or Hibs, it'd be unbelievable.
But this is a winnable game for them, is it not? So if they get past this round and then, come on, this could be the Kilnockie of 2022.
Oh my God.
Like, people are getting all excited about Darvel and they're like, oh, Darvel, but they're playing Aberdeen. They're going to go out. Whereas Drumchapel have got an actual chance of this Hollywood dream cut run. I'm all for this. This is a good draw, I think.
I mean, I suppose when you look at it that way, it is good. I was just thinking purely kind of the stories and the kind of financial aspect, but I mean, I suppose Elgin City are League Two, aren't they? So they beat a team in League One who are doing pretty well in League One in Edinburgh City. So I keep calling them Edinburgh City. Do you know what? I'm just going to keep calling them Edinburgh City.
It's like Fox in the SPL. It's never going to change.
I'm quite good with the Scottish Premiership and the SPFL, but I mean, just FC Edinburgh. I digress. I think they can get a result. They'll go there confident. They've got some good experienced pros in the squad. Obviously, the big name is obviously David Templeton.
It's mad, isn't it? David Templeton. They pulled him out of retirement.
They can't play next season's competitions, which is very Scottish football.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
What's the reason for that?
It's really, really complicated, Laura. But in a nutshell, they kind of qualified through a really truncated system. But because they're not technically a professional side, even though they're still playing senior football, because they moved up from the amateurs, basically a lot of their club doesn't fit the SFA protocols. It's a little bit confusing and really unfair. Maybe there should be a change that if you get to a certain stage in the cup, you automatically qualify for the following season. But maybe I'm just being too generous.
It's also, I mean, does this kind of harken to the whole thing around Scottish football being so draconian with things like that? Because it's been really interesting over the last, I'd say, like the last decade or so, that you have seen these really ambitious clubs from outside the league system that have now had a pathway to get in. So you look at Cove, Rangers, you look at Kelty Hearts and teams like that are making their way up. They're ambitious, they want to do well. But you're actually seeing that gap even narrow in the tiers below that. So, Drumchapel were amateur 2 years ago and now they've earned themselves £20,000 for getting to this round. Surely there should be a review of those kind of things to allow these teams that can grow exponentially really quickly to have that pathway to reach their full potential.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot between a lot of clubs in the Lowland League and some clubs in the west of Scotland in League Two, to be honest, and even teams at the bottom half of League One. There's not a huge difference there, and ambitious clubs should have a pathway and should be rewarded, and it's good to see that. I think, as we all know, there's not a huge amount of money in Scottish football at any level, never mind at the bottom of the game. So if good players want to pursue a career outside of football and then play part-time on the side, it makes sense, not just short-term, but especially long-term. Because, you're not going to play League Two, League One football and be able to retire after it.
You mentioned earlier, Euan, Darvel is a great story as well. Currently leaders of the West of Scotland Premier League. They beat Montrose. Well, they mauled Montrose 5-2, and they've got a really tasty one bringing Aberdeen to Recreation Park. It's going to be quite interesting there because Darvel have got a bit of money behind them as well, haven't they?
Yeah, and sometimes I think they're a little bit unfairly kind of labelled with that tag. It's true. And I'm not saying you're doing it, but a lot of people kind of go, that's Darvel just buying success again. I mean, there's obviously an element of truth in terms of, they've brought players in like McShane, and they've got good players. Got Jamie Glasgow, I think, recently from Auchinleck. But, I mean, at the end of the day, they still need to go out on the pitch and put the performances in. And to go and beat Montrose 5-2 is a cracking result. And that's, to me, that's what you want, isn't it, for Darvel? You're getting Aberdeen coming to your ground. It's just wild. I love these sort of games.
Linlithgow Rose as well. Another interesting one. They're the leaders on the other side, the East of Scotland Premier League. They've got Wraith Rovers.
It's just so good. The Scottish Cup football, especially when the World Cup's going on, I think it's quite a good contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got football at that scale going on, and then here, the Scottish Cup's still here, and it's just very pure. Yeah. Just going back to the game at the weekend, it was played in Drumchapel United, was played at Maryhill Juniors, because obviously they can't play at their ground. I mean, the pitch was terrible. Like it was proper, like mud everywhere, and there wasn't much grass on the park, especially at the sides. So I just love that. I think it's great.
Special mention to Stirling University too, who beat Albion Rovers.
I'm a graduate from Stirling University, so I played football during my time there. Yeah. Chris Geddes is doing an incredible job, and it pains me to say this as my former coach. It really does. But in all seriousness, he's been unbelievable. Even in the Lowland League, they're right up at the top of the table. So it's incredible.
The big one is there for all to see. You in Hearts v Hibs, or Hibs v Hearts, I should say.
I don't think it's a draw that either team will want, to be honest, that early in the competition. I mean, if you can win it, it's fantastic. You've got bragging rights and you've knocked your rivals out of the competition. But if you lose that game, at the start of January, I think it's the 21st, 22nd weekend that we played, that's an absolute killer.
No, I can actually vouch for that. I remember there was a year Motherwell played Ross County, and it was that sort of third week in January, and they lost, and it kills you. It kills your whole momentum, because you've taken the winter break and you're coming back, you're all fired up, and it just throws you. And I'm looking at like Hamilton Ross County, that is rife for a 0-0 on a Baltic day in January at New Douglas Park.
Well, Laura, I've got good news for you, because there's no replays.
Glorious days, isn't it?
But my only issue is with because the all member clubs pretty much voted no replays, because it's just a massively congested schedule. Yeah, really quite difficult to say. But it's still going to be extra time and penalties. I don't know if you guys are with me, but I am done with extra time. I think it's an utterly pointless thing to go on with, and why not just go straight to penalties?
Yeah, but try saying that to Dundee fans, though, after this weekend. They scored 4 times in extra time, so... Yeah,
that's fair. Although, to be fair, in my own experience, just a few weeks ago, just before the World Cup started, I was working the English League Cup, the West Ham-Blackburn game, and I didn't realise that it didn't go to extra time, so 90 minutes, I'm like, another half hour of this. And then it was like, oh wait, penalties, fantastic. And of course, we were treated to 21 penalties. Okay, didn't go West Ham's way, but the drama from going from 90 minutes to 21 penalties, I'm all for that.
It's that wonderful thing of like being able to work in football and it being like the best job in the world and all that stuff. There's not a single person that I know who works in football that really like, yeah, it's extra time, what a story. Everyone wants to go home at a normal time.
Because the thing is, we don't leave the ground at full time. We've got like 3 hours work after. So yeah, you're like, thank God for that. I don't have to finish at 2 a.m. now.
I suppose the only negative against no replays is the fact if a smaller club did get a draw, imagine Darvel drew with Aberdeen and then, they're missing out on the chance to go to Pittodrie. And the income of that, and even just the experience. That's the only downside. I'm not a big fan of replays, but that is the only kind of slight positive to it. But I agree in extra time. I'm not a fan of extra time. What you also find is a lot of teams just sit in extra time. They don't want to give it away. It turns into quite a boring game. Let's just bring back silver goal.
Love it.
The dogs bark and the caravan passes. The caravan keeps moving. The caravan keeps going.
The wait for Rangers fans is over, with Michael Beale being named the 18th manager of Rangers. It's the worst kept secret in Govan, but he leaves Queen's Park Rangers 7th in the English Championship after telling the West London side that he would stay loyal to them after an approach from Premier League Wolves. So let's hear a fan's perspective on this appointment. We're joined now by Rangers fan Martin Howden. And Martin, the first question for me really is, does this appease the majority of Rangers fans, or do you have any concern with this appointment?
I definitely can't speak for the majority of Rangers fans. But for me, I think I'm positive about it. I think 4 weeks is a long time in football, and when he looked like he was heading to Wolves, all the talk was, it's one that got away, and now everyone seems to be a bit underwhelmed by it. But I just think he's the right man, what Rangers need right now. Just that kind of bit of stability. The last 2 seasons, so we win the league, and then the following season we win the Europa final, and now we're just looking for someone to stop the bleeding and hopefully take us to the summer. We're not going to win the league. I don't think we just kind of need a bit of stability.
I guess when it comes to Celtic managers, Rangers managers, you kind of get, there's sort of different categories. You can either be your experienced manager, you can be the club legend manager, or you can be the rookie manager. Whereabouts does Michael Beale fit into that? Is he a safe option?
I think he's safe for what we need right now, which is, I always think that Rangers are our best. It's like when we're, in Karate Kid with the Cobra Kai dojo, Rangers just need to be them, right? Where they're just the kind of really angry bad guys. The Pedro years when we were getting bullied by Motherwell and we were crying about players getting injured. And it just feels like this is what the first proper season of Gio has been like, where we just lose that aggression. We're rolled over. And I think Beale will just sort that out a little bit. He'll make us harder to be, a bit more aggressive. Not aggressive like physically, but just the way we play will be aggressive. And I think that's what we need just now.
For me, looking at it purely from a statistical point of view and looking at the background of Beale, there's no doubt that he's a fantastic coach, and he's been kind of hailed as one of the reasons of Steven Gerrard's success, not just at Rangers, but also at Aston Villa. And then he's went to Queen's Park Rangers, where, let's face it, his managerial career is relatively short. Does that worry you in a sense, or is it just because of the way that he played while he was at Rangers that gives you some solace?
I mean, I'm not worried now, because I'm just, the league's over, and it's almost quite nice not to worry and carry the stress of like, will we win the league? I mean, he's not going to wave a magic wand. I know that the stats of kind of how many trophies he won under Gerrard keeps getting thrown at us, but it's one of those things I just don't buy. Like, I could see with my own eyes how much we improved under Beale and Gerrard's time, year on year. Obviously, the last year after 55, you could see there was a bit of staleness coming in. But you can say that, and that's why I didn't buy the whole Gio thing about we need to give him time like Gerrard. They were working in two completely different ways, and we were aggressing under Gio. Like I said, I'm not going to sit there and say we're going to win the league or that he's the perfect manager. I just really think he will just take that team. He knows the players, and I'm optimistic with him.
Yeah, I guess this is one for Finn as well. Can I open it up to both of you? But am I right in saying that Beale was sort of credited almost as kind of like the brains behind the operation with Steven Gerrard? And in that case, what are you kind of expecting from him? Like, what's his football going to be like? Do you think it's going to be very similar to the time when Gerrard was in charge?
It's hard to kind of answer if he's the brains behind it all, because it always just kind of, it depends where you have the argument. When Rangers win, it's like, it's all because of Beale. When it's not, it's because of Gerrard's part of it. I mean, that's the big thing. Like, Gerrard was a great manager. He's very charismatic. He's a leader. He inspires people. And then when you've got someone like Michael Beale, who's clearly a very good coach, and they just seem to work well together. I mean, a lot of the Rangers players talk about how well Beale coached them, and so you hope that's enough. But at the same time, I'm not naive to think that clubs like Rangers and Celtic do seem to thrive when their manager's a big personality. There's a cult of personality that just seems to work well in Scottish football, certainly domestically, maybe not so much in Europe. And whether Beale will have that, I don't know.
I think that was one thing I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, Martin, because I think in terms of coaching ability, and he has the track record there because he was part of Gerrard's coaching staff, he's definitely got the credentials. I think his style of play, Rangers can't play much worse, so there'll probably be an improvement on that side. But it was really about the personality and the temperament thing, to ask if you think he's got that, because you look at other managers that have failed as a head coach, as a manager of Rangers or Celtic, and all the ones that have been successful kind of need to have a certain level of gravitas, stubbornness, I think, and almost cockiness or overconfidence in their own ability to cope with it. Do you think Michael Beale has that? Or if he doesn't, do you think it's something that he can grow into?
I think there's an arrogance to Michael Beale, which is why I think he might be a success. And I think he definitely believes in himself and the way he talks. So that's great. I mean, when you do look at number twos who go you do sort of feel like there are just some people who are better at being a number two. They kind of like the closest they have with players, and that's kind of what works. And I think Beale has ambitions being a manager, totally believes in himself. And I think there's an arrogance. And there's also, like, let's not forget the Rangers Celtic game where he was screaming at Clancy and he definitely showed passion and anger. We just don't know.
He had a good start at QPR, but after the whole Wolves rejection from his side, and the carry on with him saying to QPR fans that I'm building something here, there's a journey to be had, I've got a duty of care and respect to players that I've had to convince to come to this club. And he kind of turns his back on not just the fans, possibly some of the players. I don't know if some of them might come up with him. I don't know if they're good enough to play for Rangers, but that's the little bit that concerns me. Is he was always, I think, in his eyes, I think he was always going to come back to Rangers.
It's interesting because Joshua Barry, who we had on the podcast a number of weeks ago from the Rangers Review, he'd interviewed Michael Beale in the summer when he'd gone down to... at that point, he was taking the job at QPR. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned the fact that he wanted to be Rangers manager one day, or he would love to come back as Rangers manager one day. And I think the phrase he used was, you can't turn a club like Rangers down. Mm. And I think it was pretty evident, even the way after... There was a lot of, ire and animosity when Gerrard and the team left to go to Aston Villa. But Michael Beale, I think it was very evident that he genuinely loved, I think, and thrived on that atmosphere of being at a club like Rangers. Mm-hmm. And I think it's that thing where, looking at the Wolves job when it came up, I think it is two different things.
Yeah.
I can see absolutely why, as a neutral, you can look at it and be like, oh, but he just said, a month ago that he wouldn't leave because he wants to be part of the project at QPR. But it's like, but things change, and they can change very quickly in football. And I think if it had been almost any other club, I mean, obviously if it was a high-end Premier League club or something like that, he probably would have gone.
Yeah.
But I think there were only a handful of clubs that Michael Beale would have left QPR for, and it just so happened that one of them asked them to be their manager. So I think that's where it is. Because he's coming back to Ibrox, it's a place that he knows the setup. Like he was the setup.
Yeah.
So it's not as if he's coming into a place brand new that's a level up again. It is a level higher than QPR, obviously, but he is coming back into a familiar workplace. He's coming to a city that he knows, with a squad mostly that he knows and he helped build and he knows how to coach. So it is I think a different thing. You can't really conflate the Wolves opportunity coming up with the Rangers opportunity, because they're two entirely different beasts for him to consider.
And I think that's the point you made about him just knowing this squad, because it is fairly similar to the one that him and Steven Gerrard built. That's why it's easier for him to take this job. I think that's what you're kind of alluding to. But it's also going to be harder as well, because people will expect to get the same results. And it's just not going to be the case. And when people start picking the bones out of his career so far as a manager, because we've said it before, there's no doubting he's a very good coach. I feel like he's becoming the new Steve Clark for me. Michael Beale, he's a very good coach. But just this idea that he's still coming into a club in the middle of a season, and he's still coming into a club that is kind of feeling down and out, even though they're second in the league, even though they've still got a chance of winning some cups. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is still going to be that expectation of Rangers fans looking at Michael Beale and saying, well, if he built that team's still there, why can't he do it again? How long is he going to be given by the Rangers board? Because Steven Gerrard had 3 years not winning a trophy, longer than any Rangers manager. Giovanni van Bronckhorst, who took Rangers to the Europa League final, did not get that sort of leeway. How much leeway is Michael Beale going to get if over these next couple of games? I mean, you look at his first game in the 15th of December is against Hibs, followed by Aberdeen, Ross County, Motherwell. If he doesn't pick up full points and then he gets an absolute mauling at Celtic, you'd be turning around to the board and going, why are you hiring a rookie manager?
As Martin was saying, I think Rangers fans, if they're being realistic, don't expect to win the league this year. I know we have to do all the cliches, you can't win the league in November and everything, but realistically, the form Celtic have been in and the form Rangers have been in, even if Michael Beale can get a tune out of this Rangers team and they can find that level of consistency that's eluded them for quite some time, probably about 18 months, because this goes back before Gerrard even left, I still can't see Rangers essentially going unbeaten to the end of the season and Celtic dropping points in 5 or 6 matches. I can't really see that happening. So I think Rangers fans, whilst obviously they're desperate to win the league title back, they're realistic, I think, as well, on the most part. And I think it's more about seeing a tangible improvement between now and the end of the season, as well as competing in the 2 cup competitions that are still left. I think he will get time from the support and obviously from the board, who took their time with Van Bronckhorst as well. I think the key thing for me is investment in the playing squad, because it really needs turned around. I mean, Rangers are kind of at the point now that the club had said they would never get to again, because they were talking about this continual rotation and improving the squad. And they haven't really done that, so they're faced with the possibility of losing Morelos and Kent for free in the summer. Mm-hmm. A lot of players, older players, that have been great servants for the club, but they're not getting any younger. McGregor, Arfield, I think even Ryan Jack will probably leave in the summer. So you're talking about a big squad overhaul, and I think that has to happen in January, and he has to be backed. Otherwise, you could get Pep Guardiola in, but if he's not getting backed in the transfer market, nothing much is going to change on the pitch.
That's all we have time for this week. We'll be back next Tuesday, but first of all, my thanks to Euan, my thanks to Martin, my thanks to Laura, my thanks to Findlay, and that is all of my thanks. Now, go away, listen to something else. Bye.